Hey, what do you think of this? Be honest. Oh my god. I've always loved the 5th generation of Pokemon. I remember being just a little bags and drawing Munna constantly after it got revealed. Mostly because Reshiram and Zekrom were too hard. Speaking of, these things left such a big impression on me. When you think about Pokemon being such a colourful, vibrant franchise, black and white dragons just stick right out even to this day. We'll get to you. When you play through Pokemon Black and White, the Dragonspiral Tower is where the game takes a dramatic turn as you witness Team Plasma revive these titans and bring the game into its final arc. It makes you feel important. It makes you feel invigorated. It makes you remember that Kyurem basically got entirely retconned in Black and White 2. I've always thought that Kyurem wasn't given the chance to take the spotlight it deserved, even in its own box game. In Pokemon Black and White, Kyurem was relegated to an old wives' tale that stalks the giant chasm and eats kids, and it finally gets to be a plot device in Black and White 2 as Getsis nearly impales you. Fun! These games were more focused on being a continuation rather than establishing lore for Kyurem itself, which is fine. Nobody's exactly clamoring for it, but other than what's set up and hinted at in Black and White, it still doesn't feel like it's actually been focused on at all. So let's read up and see what I can do to make Kyurem feel like just as much of a character as Reshiram and Zekrom. To TLDR the lore of these three, in ancient times there were two heroes that would see the creation of the Unova region with the help of the single dragon, a being that had disputed origins, but plenty of myths allude to it arriving in the giant chasm inside a meteorite. Anyway, these kings were divas and wanted to rule under two different regimes, truth and ideals. The two heroes had a big old fight, and the single dragon split into fragments of itself to align with each hero, with the vast white Reshiram joining the older hero's pursuit of truth, and the deep black Zekrom joining the younger hero's steadfast ideals, leaving the crusty little Kyurem in the dust to kind of just waddle back home. Anyway, the brothers perfectly matched each other's strengths and realized there could be no true winner, so they kind of just chilled out and everyone was happy until their stupid kids had a "No, I love my dad more" contest and brought Reshiram and Zekrom back for the fight, destroying the region in tow. "I'm taking away your dogs!" Disappearing into the fray, at some point Reshiram and Zekrom sealed themselves into the light and dark stones, all while Kyurem's chilling in the giant chasm, being slandered by folktales made up by the citizens of Lacanosa Town as it waits for its body to be whole again with either promise of truth or ideals. Look at that mess. Let's just shove that up there for now and take a look at their potential real-life counterparts. As basic concepts, Reshiram and Zekrom are very explicitly stated to represent the concept of yin and yang from Taoism, opposing energies that act in balance of one another. Their species names in Japan are, quite literally, the white yang Pokemon and the black yin Pokemon. Just because this was their primary influence, though, doesn't mean that it's their only one. Their in-game lore shares similarities with a whole library of duality-driven conflicts, but most aptly, we have Ormazd and Ahriman from the religion of Zoroastrianism. Ahriman was the embodiment of evil, chaos, etc. So, to vanquish them, Ormazd, Lord of Wisdom, created our world as their battlefield, and for the following 9,000 years, the two would be at equal odds against each other, fighting for their throne. So where does Kyurem fit into all of that? And why does it fuse with Reshiram and Zekrom instead of forming the single dragon again? I mean, if you squint, it kind of sort of looks like Reshiram's wings and Zekrom's arms, but bald. Kyurem represents the absence of both yin and yang. Wuji. Wuji has been translated as ultimate, limitless, nothingness, and more to the like. The very state of Wuji is to be without being. Void. This fits Kyurem's whole empty deal, being the discarded amalgamation of the single dragon. While we're sitting in our Taoism brain cells, the three dragons together could also be interpreted as the three purities, a trinity of gods who are the origin of being. Back to Zoroastrianism, alongside Reshiram and Zekrom as Ormazd and Ahriman, they could as a trio represent the three judges who determine your afterlife, Mithra, Srausha, and Rashnu. Together, they are overseers of truth, justice, and conscience. Imagine this thing deciding where your ghost lives. So what about fusing? That, my friendly keyboard typer, comes back to one of my favourite topics and yours, alchemy. Starting from the beginning, there was prime matter, the chaotic origin of the universe who is indestructible, eternal, and cyclical, represented by the Ouroboros, a self-eating snake, and as a side note, prime matter is believed to be the foundation of the fabled Philosopher's Stone. From prime matter came the three essentials: sophic sulfur, sophic mercury, and sophic salt. Sulfur and mercury are the two contraries, represented by a white feathered dragon and a black quadrupedal dragon, who together work in balance to create gold when purified. Salt would work to freeze the other two, giving them life and a physical form, and is alongside them represented by a three-headed dragon. So, we have alchemy, emptiness, and conscience. If we do choose Kyurem as our magical girl protagonist for today, I think we can whip up something that brings some character to this husk, possibly involving Reshiram and Zekrom's characters outside of being tools for, megalomaniacs. What about the yearning? What about ambition? These concepts are already explored in-game through End Storyline with Team Plasma, but what about them? Did anyone even ask? I'm just giving a voice to the people. Aren't I perfect? Oh, there's the tape. I wonder how many of these will get made. I mean, I just hope they don't make a sequel. Not because sequels are bad, just, they should explore different IPs. Oh, it's starting. Every day, you wake up and you think. Every night, you fall asleep and dream. Every moment, you live and you want. For the beast that lies cold beneath the depths of the village chasm, they walk an even simpler reality we call life. They were an unfeeling dragon whose claws bore no muscle and whose wings had frozen over, clipped, torn. Their mind could not speak, for their maw was held shut by thick glaciers of ice. Any words it would have spoken were nothing more than the bites of friction that billowed from their neck. Creatures would make a plaything of their body, clambering and sliding down their back, refining their claws on their legs. What they would chip away would grow back not only tougher, but grittier. The listless beast stalked the crater in the deepest floor, moving with no pattern or rhythm, but would find itself laying in an empty bowl of ice. The nearby villagers spoke to the notion that it would scream, bellowing a threat of chase, branded words that, if possible, would have cut the very ice that encased them. One night, the listless beast managed to breach from the chasm, dragging their legs through the murk of a nearby forest clearing. They pointed their head towards the sky and gawked at a white streak left trailing between the stars. The beast took their head and scraped it across the ground, scrawling and drawing, leaving the visage of a feathered dragon whose horns trailed far down to its own tail. The beast meandered, far from their art, laying their head against stones where they would wait for the morning sunlight. At dawn, they arose, sterling white feathers laid at their rest. They took their head to the sky and saw the feathered dragon from their art, alive, lowering itself to their nest. It inspected them, prodded at them, lowered their guard for them. The white dragon was warm. The touch of its feathers vaporized the morning dew. The listless beast's frozen body remained intact. The white dragon began to speak, but they could not hear the words. It lowered its wings. It gazed into the beast's eyes. It knew. Wildlife gathered to hear its words while the beast lay still. Creatures gathered as they all regaled in its tales. The beast saw scorches upon the wings of the white dragon, ever so slightly reaching towards it. It flinched. It drew back its kindness as quickly as it had given it. It glowed a twinge of crimson and took itself far into the blue sky. The beast lay down once more, now gripping onto their white-feathered bed. The sun brought itself down into night, and the beast arose in trickles of rain. They lurked out of the woods with their white feathers in tow, finding themselves at the crest of the chasm's peak. They looked towards the moon, noting a shadow in its core. From the sky came thunderbolts that rang hollow between their wings. And as the beast fell back into the chasm, they slept until morn. Black scales poured off the beast's body as they awoke. They burrowed them with the white feathers they kept close. The scales bore static, ruffling the feathers in the beast's nest. They were interrupted by a thud. As they looked up, they were confronted by the scarred, scorched face of a deep black dragon, an intruder upon their home. It roared, barking at the beast, who would remain still, sturdy. The black of its body reverberated with charges of blue, bringing with it a rain that pooled in the smallest cracks of the chasm floor, frozen over in mere seconds. The beast sat, the beast watched. The beast reached for the dragon's leg, muscular, strong. The dragon's body matched the hueless scales that they had found. The black dragon swatted the beast's claw away, a nuisance. After closer inspection, the black dragon took one of the white feathers from their nest and posed questions towards the beast. Unable to answer, the dragon sat with them, patient. Willpower is what drove the black dragon. It knew what it wanted. It knew what it needed. It knew how to get it. With the form they had and being without will, the beast could not bring themselves to respond. Listless, frigid, still. Patience was a virtue, but answers were a luxury. The dragon, despite its hope, gave up on the beast's word. With a flash of blue, the dragon made for the skies, leaving its scales for the beast to fill their nest. On them was the promise of thought, the ideals that drove it on its course. As the dragon flew towards the sky, the beast lay there with the echoes of all they had witnessed. White feathers, black scales, knowledge, thought. They mocked their corpse of a body. They took this corpse and rested in their now full nest. As they stroked their trinkets and rocked themselves to sleep, a word found itself ringing between their horns. Want. Hey, thanks for watching. This was a really interesting challenge for me as a writer. I actually chose Kyurem and their dragon siblings as I wanted to write a character who wasn't a character. And I think through this vignette, I'm pretty satisfied in how I did it. I'll let you be the judge though. As always, I'm not an expert on anything I talk about, just a hobbyist with an internet connection. Feel free to throw in the comments any other Pokemon stories you'd like me to look into, and make sure to subscribe to see if I get around to it. And maybe, just maybe, we can see each other again.